Okay, so one of the first questions that you had for me is you wanted me to describe my involvement in sales and marketing. And to tell you a little bit about me, I am a retail sales and marketing professional with 29 years in operations, sales training, finance, and marketing experience. I'm a consultant, and I consult companies anywhere up to about $50 million in revenue, typically per year. I've also coached franchise owners in the past, from inception, cradle to grave as we call it, where they actually will start their businesses off and not know what they're doing initially to get into a franchise until the day in which we break even, until the day they want to sell their businesses and they're successfully selling those businesses. So that's a little bit about me and my background. The next question regarding sales was, how did you become good at sales? And I have to tell the story of being the frightened young man. When I was young, the Electrolux man came around to my home as a child, and I really, the last thing in the world I wanted in my life was to become a salesman, because this guy for some reason just spooked me. So that was my first experience with, in which made me rather uncomfortable. So as time went on, I worked into positions in the retail industry in which I came across a mentor. Getting a mentor is one of the most important things that you'll ever consider doing, by the way. And this mentor helped to break me out of my shell. I always had a love for people, but I couldn't quite connect the dots between the people and the process and the product. Once I understood the products better, I was much more comfortable. So understanding your product knowledge is a key element. Then taking that product knowledge, your passion for people, and being able to take all that and apply it to the science of selling. And so I'll talk to you a little bit about the science of selling and how I go about helping others get through their pain points with sales. And sales is not something that many people are very comfortable with, and for good reason. A lot of us have had bad experiences with salespeople who weren't genuine, who didn't treat us with the respect that we deserve, and or just didn't serve our needs properly. So, when you first think about, well, I'm going to be a salesperson here at XYZ company, why do I want to do that? You have to discover the why. Are you into their products? Do you like to deal with the kind of clients that they're dealing with? Is it the culture of the company that you really want to convey? Is the mission of the company something? You have to find little tidbits here and there, left and right, to buy into in order to understand and transfer that understanding to the sales floor or out into the field if you're doing field sales. It's very important to understand why you're there, your products, and so forth. So taking all that information and understanding with companies how those companies work. At this point in my career, I see any company's product as simply a widget. I would not have said that to you 10 or 15 years ago. I would have had to have known your product so deeply that I would not be comfortable at all selling it. I can now convey that I see products as widgets simply because that's all they are, okay? The sales, marketing, operations, and finance of a company are all high-level items in which always remain linear. They don't change. The mechanics of these items are the same. The metrics in finance are all the same. Your performance based upon your marketing efforts, typically the ratios are not far different from one segment to another. It just depends upon exactly what your product line is. So as far as getting past those pain points, identifying where someone has those challenges, and they may call them weaknesses, but I see them as opportunities and challenges. Starting off on a positive footnote when you're talking about sales, interacting with people, that's going to be the most important thing that you do. Whenever you're selling, it's showtime, and the customer deserves a good show, right? And I don't mean be false or fake or untrue to your character, but performing to the best of your ability when presenting your products or services is paramount to serving your customer well. And that ultimately is a salesperson's duty. If you perform that duty well, you'll be rewarded with transactions which will bring you revenue, okay? So some of the biggest challenges that I had in the beginning, I discussed products and how products in particular were my crutch. I felt like I had to know that product intimately. And it was really the aha moment of understanding that it was about the client's interest in the product. You have to have some product knowledge. There's no question about that. It's absolutely helpful, whether it be a technical field or a musical instrument. It could be artwork. It could be tax, processing. It could be anything you can possibly imagine. Custom T-shirts, what have you. Understanding what the clients need and selling consultatively, I think, is where most people miss the boat in sales. They really don't understand the mindset of the client. So getting underneath every stone and understanding what that client's mindset is, what their needs, wants, and desires are, ultimately will bring you to success in sales. So as far as sales strategies that I feel work best, consultative selling is absolutely where I'm most comfortable. I am not a hardcore, hey, do you want to buy this now kind of guy. I often, when it comes to sales strategies, like to get client feedback along the path. Okay, there's a science to selling, like there's a science to everything else in this world. And there's about 7 or 8 steps in the sales process, in which if you practice and practice and practice, you will eventually learn that these steps are repeatable, and you may need to go off track and come back on track. That's a part of what sales is about, following your customer, not necessarily everything you want to say to them, but listening as much, if not more, than you're speaking is very important in sales, because if you're not listening, you're not learning. That's all there is to it, and the customer is going to know that very quickly. But you do have to speak and be somewhat outgoing and excited about your product. Your enthusiasm, your tenaciousness, and your passion for your products and services is ultimately what will sell your products and services. So what steps did I take to become good at sales? Probably the most important step was that I would try, I would fail, I would get up, and I would try again. Okay, you can't just take no for an answer all the time, of course. You have to at some point generate revenue, especially if you're on a salaried position or a salary plus incentive kind of position. You need to make sure that you're producing revenue for that employer or for yourself if you're an independent contractor just trying to generate revenue for your company. So obviously there's a time investment, and you need to kind of label that and say, if I'm putting $100 into this activity, am I getting 300 or 400 back? That's a 3 or 4x return. Those are very valuable things to do. Marketing on another channel is very difficult in the fact that some folks will spend up to $1,000 and see an immediate return of $100 and think this activity is not worth it. Well, that's not necessarily true unless you track the activity consistently as you go along and make sure that you continue to engage in that activity on a regular basis for 90 days at an absolute minimum, whether it be participating in your entrepreneurial clubs that you belong to, going to the business meetups, your online advertising, your digital media, your community involvement, all these different things that you're going to do to engage with your clients, your delivery of print material, whatever it may be. Be consistent, have a plan, and stick to your plan. Don't be afraid to fail, okay? It's better to fail and to try and then to fail than have never tried at all. You've heard this before. So as far as sales strategies, I am a huge fan of the add-on close. Okay, and by add-on close, oftentimes a customer will purchase one item which requires a smaller ancillary or secondary item along with that. Frequently, rather than going toward, are you ready to purchase this product, Mr. or Mrs. Jones? I would say, that's really great. How did you feel about a leading question regarding the ancillary product or additional product or service that is typically necessary along with the main product? If they say, I really like that idea and I want it in blue, you don't even have to ask the question if they're going to purchase the main product, because you've already gotten the answer on the secondary product. So that's what I call the add-on close. Probably the most difficult part of selling, there are two parts really. One would be what's called overcoming objections. Okay, so when a customer objects, that means that you haven't done your job well enough. That is the bottom line here. So as a salesperson, your job is to identify when a client is not buying into, for whatever reason, what you're telling them, and you may be just talking about the wrong product entirely, and you should be talking about the red product, not the blue product. And it could be something as simple as a color of a product, whether it be a guitar in blue versus red, simple things like this. And if you didn't listen enough, you're not going to know. So you need to ask these questions. And so overcoming those objections are important. So if the customer says to you, oh, no, actually, I don't want that because it's not blue. Oh, you didn't want red. Let's look at the blue one now. Okay, so the challenge you will have in transferring products from when a customer says, I want ABC product in EFD, shape, size, color, etc. So the most difficult thing is you don't have ABC product in EDF color. Okay, so you have to then transfer to a product in which you do have. It takes a very sharp mind to be able to figure out exactly what product or service you may have that would closely relate to that customer's needs, and then present that in the most appealing way possible. So that's probably one of the most important parts of sales that I found that it takes a lot of chutzpah in order to get past that understanding of I've got to change into a totally different. You want a Toyota Corolla, but I have a Honda Accord. Okay. So there was another question that came. What advice would you give to someone who may be struggling with sales and marketing? Find a good coach. Get someone who is experienced, who has trained people before in this, who has tried, who has failed, who has tried and failed more times than you can possibly imagine trying and failing. People who are honest, like I am, about trying and failing, I think are going to be more apt to listening to your coming from. They'll also be a tough coach, too. They're not going to let you give up. It's very important that you find someone that says, no, you will not quit. You must keep going. This is what you pay me to do. And they say, hey, I understand you're the new athlete on the team. By the way, I'm the coach, and I'm the one who's going to make you run the hills. There's nothing wrong with that. The reason there's nothing wrong with that is that that juice, that energy, that motivation, that push to get to the next level. I had some really great coaches along the way who I just love and adore to this day, and if they had not pushed me to the level in which they pushed me back in the day, I wouldn't be speaking to you here today. Does that help?
And we were down by the sea, just you and me, as the moon was dancing on the wave.